The pairing sanctuary on Elsynari was a sprawling living labyrinth, crafted from semi-organic, semi-crystalline materials that pulsed with an eerie blue light, like the labored, fading breaths of a dying alien creature gasping for life in endless agony. Towering biodomes curved overhead like silken ribbons suspended in air, swaying gently under the chaotic influence of fluctuating electromagnetic fields. The ceiling mimicked the cosmos itself, a breathtaking projection of Elsynari's ash-purple sky where countless unfamiliar stars trembled in the deadly void. Strange winds whistled through unseen cracks with chilling repetition, as if the planet itself whispered ceaseless warnings to the prisoners trapped within. Dren jolted awake in the midst of this ghostly sea of light. The first sensation that assaulted him was the metallic tang coating his tongue, followed by the sharp sweetness of alien plant resin thick in the sterile air. His muscles screamed in raw pain, as though his very flesh were burning beneath shredded skin. His warrior instincts kicked in automatically. Gritting his teeth, he flexed every tendon and muscle group, testing for fractures. His right arm was numb, his head spun violently, but no bones were broken. Groaning under the weight of exhaustion and disorientation, he pushed himself upright, gasping as though he'd just escaped from a toxic atmosphere. Gradually, his vision adjusted to the haunting green-blue glow that surrounded him. Beyond the semi-transparent bioglass of the cell wall, an unsettling landscape unfolded like a nightmare made manifest. Towering spires of unknown mineral composition twisted upward, slowly rotating with hypnotic precision, emitting soft energy pulses that resembled a ghostly dance, either a welcome or a warning to any intruder who had stumbled into this forbidden domain. The structures were mesmerizing, yet radiated a silent, lethal threat. Memory struck like a hammer blow. The blaring alarms, emergency red strobes flashing along the corridors of the Vanguard. The chilling screams of crewmates sucked into the merciless void, and finally, the explosive force that had cast him into endless darkness. A soft mechanical hiss interrupted the suffocating silence. The cell door slid open soundlessly, yet Dren felt the minute shift in pressure in the sealed space. Instinctively, his body shifted into a combat stance, legs braced wide, eyes scanning rapidly for any threat. Something entered. A figure, nearly 2 heads taller than Dren, moved with a terrifying grace, the perfect fusion of fluid organic motion and the calculated lethality of an elite warrior. Though slender, her curves were perfectly engineered to disorient and distract an enemy at a fatal moment. Her skin shimmered like nothing Dren had ever seen before, a silvery pearl luster reflecting the cold blue light in rippling waves, like moonlit water. Her eyes were the centerpiece, luminous gold, twin galactic vortexes that could pull a man's soul into their depths if stared at too long. Human, her voice was a smoky rasp, underlaid with an unsettling frequency resonance, like 2 tones vibrating together into a chilling harmony. "You are Dren, commander of the Terran invasion unit." Dren clenched his fists, his knuckles whitening. He met her gaze unflinching, voice roughened but unwavering. "I am Commander Dren of the Terran Alliance. Who are you?" She took a single step forward, her midnight blue biomechanical armor rippling over her body like living liquid, adjusting flawlessly to her every subtle movement. "I am Syra, High Warrior of the Elsynari. According to our ancient pairing law, you have been chosen as my mate for the upcoming heat cycle." Dren exhaled sharply, eyes narrowing like sharpened blades. "I am not a pet. I am not a lab experiment to be forced into this." Syra's golden pupils contracted to knife slits, her voice cold as tempered steel. "If you refuse, my body will fail. The heat cycle will consume me at a cellular level, agonizingly and fatally. I did not choose you out of desire. The Council mandated it because your genetic profile shows the highest compatibility. Believe me, human, I despise this arrangement even more than you do." They stood barely 3 paces apart. The very air between them thickened like frozen fog, held taut by the unspoken fury of 2 unwilling beings bound by cruel fate. Dren stared into her cold eyes, yet behind their steely exterior, he glimpsed the agony of someone desperately fighting their own biological programming. He drew a long, steady breath. I don't intend to harm you, nor will I be used as some twisted genetic experiment. If this is purely ceremonial, to keep you alive, I'll agree, but on one condition: no one touches me. No further demands are to be made of me. A faint flicker softened the edges of Syra's intense stare. Agreed. A false mating bond only. You will serve as my mate in name only. From her belt she retrieved a device finer than human hair, almost invisible to the eye. A faint strip of pale blue light ignited as she traced it gently across the bare skin of Dren's wrist. A searing cold wave surged through his flesh, then vanished, leaving behind the faintest outline of an intricate Elsynari twin helix symbol, glowing softly in eerie green, a mark impossible to remove. Done? Syra said curtly, her voice once more cold and detached, as though sheathing a blade. You will now reside in the mate quarters. 3 rules. Do not leave after sunset, do not speak to other Elsynari, and under no circumstances attempt to sever the bond unless you wish to die in excruciating pain. The door slid silently shut behind her, leaving Dren alone in the oppressive silence of the prison chamber. He raised his wrist slowly, staring at the glowing mark. The weight of an irreversible biological sentence sank in. His fist clenched involuntarily, muscles tightening as if to resist the cruel destiny imposed upon him. The heavy stillness pressed in around him. The sky of Elsynari had shifted from deep blue to an ethereal charcoal violet canvas, as though painted in liquid stardust. Dren walked slowly through the organic corridors, twisted vines winding along the walls like living veins, radiating a soft light that mimicked distant stars suspended midair. Each step echoed faintly, a low vibration like ancient drums resonating from the planet's core. The mate quarters door slid open. Inside was an entirely different world. Darkness just soft enough to soothe the senses. Overhead domes, woven with bio-silken threads, aglow like a miniature spiral galaxy, drifting weightlessly. Syra stood with her back to him, slender yet strong shoulders catching the soft ambient glow. Her armor fell away in molten silver rivulets, pooling soundlessly around her feet like quicksilver evaporating into mist. Beneath, her flawless pearlescent skin gleamed like the untouched surface of an alien moon cloaked in crystalline frost. Toned muscles shifted subtly beneath the satin-like texture of her skin with each quiet breath. Dren whipped his head away, ears burning, heat flushing his face. Don't flatter yourself. Syra's voice cut through the silence, cold as a blade sliding through silk. I have no interest in your kind. Dren sank onto the edge of the living bed, a liquid gel hybrid that molded perfectly to his weight, yet felt impossibly soft and supportive. He closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and tried to exhale the tension that had crept between 2 strangers forcibly confined by cruel circumstance. Believe me, I'm not interested either. No further words were exchanged. The strange winds of the alien world whispered once more through the biodome cracks, like the distant lament of civilizations long extinct. Night fell on Elsynari. Neither of them could know that they had just begun a spiral into something inescapable. A destiny of forbidden emotions, of a bond forged in pretense, yet slowly becoming the most undeniable truth either of them had ever known. The cold, pale blue light of Elsynari's morning filtered silently through the translucent biodomes, reflecting off the curved, living surfaces of the walls like silver ribbons adrift in zero gravity. The ethereal glow traced the contours of Dren's rugged body, cloaking him in a faint silver mist, as though the planet itself was trying to weave the lone foreign intruder into its endless biological tapestry. Dren stirred in the strange embrace of the living bed. The liquid-like surface cradled him with perfect support, molding itself to every joint and muscle group, as though it had been engineered specifically for him. Despite this, every shift of his frame triggered faint muscle spasms, reminding him with each breath that everything around him, the atmosphere, the gravity, even the cellular charge of the air, was utterly foreign to human biology. Raising a hand to block the light slicing through the fissures in the biodome above, Dren exhaled slowly. The pain didn't worry him. It was the surreal reality that tightened his chest. A human, a Terran commander, now bound in a bizarre role on an alien world, trapped in a living prison by a female warrior whose status as ally or enemy remained unclear. A faint hum of bioenergy reverberated like the weary sigh of a sentient planet. Dren looked up. Syra was already awake, standing motionless beside the nutrient pool, her silhouette sharp and still like a forgotten statue of a long-dead goddess. Bioluminescent plants swirled in gentle currents at the water's surface, casting soft waves of heat and faint energy motes into the air that floated like drifting will-o'-the-wisps. Her dark, living armor had reformed over her sculpted frame, rippling across her figure like flowing liquid metal, conforming seamlessly to each subtle movement. The purple glints reflected from the walls gave her an almost unearthly beauty, dangerous, lethal, and hypnotic. "You're awake." Her voice was devoid of emotion, cold as the air between them. Dren nodded stiffly, his hand unconsciously brushing the bonding ring at his wrist, the faint green symbol still glowing like a tiny, inextinguishable flame. It was a cruel reminder of the irreversible biological link binding two unwilling strangers to a shared, inescapable fate. "My heat cycle begins in 2 Elsynari rotations." Syra turned slowly, her golden eyes locking onto his like twin stars adrift in some lonely alien galaxy. "You must understand what that means. When it begins, my body will be consumed by agony beyond what any species can endure. Without a mate nearby, I won't survive." Dren's hand tightened around his wrist. "So I just need to stay close to you?" "No." Syra's voice softened marginally, her silver-white hair cascading over her powerful shoulders like strands of pure light. "The biological link can only stabilize through direct physical contact. Very close contact. It is the only way." Her gaze pierced through him, slicing through the iron walls of discipline he had spent a lifetime building. "I don't want this, and I know you don't either. We will delay it as long as possible." The words froze the air between them. The pressure felt tangible, heavy as lead. Dren could feel the rhythm of his heart accelerating under Syra's unwavering yet faintly troubled stare, the smallest crack betraying the iron control of the warrior's mind. "Are you afraid, human?" A low, humorless chuckle escaped him. "I fought the Omega Thraxian hordes on Dravik 7. I fear nothing. Not even you, but I don't intend to become someone's living lab experiment." For the first time, something resembling a genuine flicker of amusement crossed Syra's lips, a smile so faint it barely disturbed the cold perfection of her features, like a single ripple disturbing an endless mirror lake. "Then perhaps you and I are more alike than I thought." The day crawled by under an unbearable silence. They exchanged only the barest necessities, clipped and mechanical words traded across the gulf between them. Yet what they could not suppress was the increasing heat radiating from Syra's body. The bioluminescent plants that had once glowed green shifted into a deep crimson, an undeniable biological signal that the heat cycle was far closer than either of them had expected. That night, Dren lay awake, unable to escape the soft, labored breathing that carved through the quiet like invisible blades. He turned to see Syra curled on the floor of the biochamber, limbs tight against herself in a desperate attempt to maintain control. Her once luminous silver skin had flushed into a deep purple red, like the fading sun swallowed by the event horizon of a black hole. Syra. She tried to push herself upright, trembling violently. The rapid contraction of muscles under her shimmering skin betrayed the war her body was waging against itself. Don't. Come closer. I can endure it. You'll die if this continues. Dren moved toward her slowly, each step calculated as though walking a wire suspended between life and death. He knelt beside her, his breath warm against her fevered skin. Syra's slender hand rose to push him away, but the effort failed. Her fingers shook uncontrollably. I don't want your pity. Dren said nothing. His strong, calloused hand settled on her trembling shoulder. Instantly, a pulse of blue-white bioelectric current flowed between them, like the closing of a vital circuit. Syra gasped sharply. Her erratic breathing slowed marginally, uneven but less dangerous. This isn't pity, Syra. I won't let you die. A long silence stretched between them. Slowly, Syra's head bowed in reluctant acceptance. Her golden eyes drifted closed, her lips tightening, as though she loathed the unfamiliar comfort. Only the bare minimum. Dren eased closer, leaving his hand resting lightly against her skin. Her flesh no longer burned, but radiated an unnatural warmth. The faint biocircuit patterns shifted languidly beneath his fingertips, like living energy streams searching for home. Syra's slender frame sagged gently against him, her silken shoulders trembling as she allowed herself to lean just slightly against the enemy-turned savior, an alien swan collapsing at last into the shelter of calm after an endless storm. From that fragile point of contact, an undeniable thread formed. The rules they had made, the artificial bond they had both despised, slipped further into irrelevance. Heat, forbidden longing, raw loneliness buried beneath decades of warrior discipline. Syra, the untouchable soldier, had found solace in the warmth of the one she had once hated. No more words were exchanged. Time stood still inside the silent chamber, marked only by the synchronized rhythm of two mismatched heartbeats merging under the surreal violet night sky of Elsynari, where endless unfamiliar stars gazed silently down. Another long night had begun. But this time, the false bond had begun to fracture in tiny, imperceptible ways, cracks hinting at something far more dangerous, far more beautiful and utterly unstoppable. 3 nights passed. Dren had lost count of how many times he'd been jolted awake by the sound of Syra's ragged breathing or the soft, barely contained whimpers coming from across the room. The soft red glow of the bioluminescent plants had shifted to an intense, burning orange, a biological warning that her heat cycle had reached its most dangerous peak. On the 4th night, Dren could no longer bear it. He sprang up as Syra arrived on the floor under the flickering alien light. She lay collapsed, gripping both sides of her head, her silver-violet skin now ablaze like molten metal. Glowing veins of biotic energy pulsed violently under her skin, each surge matching her increasingly erratic heartbeat. Syra! Dren rushed to her side and dropped to his knees. Her skin radiated such intense heat that it scorched his hands upon contact. Her luminous golden eyes flickered half open, drowning in unbearable pain and primal desperation for physical contact. Stay. Back, she gasped, her voice thick with torment. I can't control it anymore. No. Dren leaned in, his voice hard as steel. I won't let you die. We made an agreement. I will protect you, no matter the cost. The last shard of restraint in Syra fractured. Her trembling fingers reached out, latching onto his wrist like living shackles. The strength of her grip could have shattered bone, but Dren didn't pull away. Her breathing came in rapid, shallow bursts, her body trembling violently beneath the destabilized bioenergy rippling through her form. Dren? He knew this moment was inevitable. The false bond could no longer remain symbolic. If Syra was to survive, their connection had to be made real. Dren slowly raised his hand and pressed his palm gently against her flushed cheek. Her skin burned like living satin under his touch. Her golden eyes widened, staring into his, reflecting a storm of agony, raw vulnerability, the kind of weakness no Elsynari warrior would ever allow another to see. And something else, a fragile, unnamed emotion even Syra herself could not define. An immediate surge of bioelectricity passed from her to him, a current of strange warmth cascading through every fiber of his being. Dren gasped quietly as he felt her heartbeat, her breath, the living energy flowing wildly inside every cell of her tortured body. Syra exhaled sharply, shuddering as though dragged back from the edge of oblivion. She clung to him instinctively, slender arms wrapping tightly around his neck as if afraid he might vanish into the boundless violet night. Her luminous skin glowed faintly against his chest, a soothing warmth that was as dangerous as it was comforting. Dren knew he had crossed the line they had sworn to maintain. But reason alone was no longer enough to resist the gravity Syra's body exerted over him. "Just this once," she whispered hoarsely, a mixture of command and pleading tangled into 5 impossible words. They needed no more words. The first touches were hesitant, clumsy, restrained by fear and duty. But very soon, instinct took over with primal urgency. Syra's body, soft yet searing, pressed hard against him. Their biorhythms synchronized into a shared tempo, a raw, elemental dance between a human and an Elsynari. For the first time, Dren realized Syra's skin was not just armor or alien beauty. It was a portal into an emotional world she had never let anyone witness. She trembled in his arms, breathing heavily, her hands clawing desperately at his back as though afraid he would dissolve and leave her forever adrift in Elsynar's endless purple void. Heartbeat, breath, soft moans. There were no more barriers, no more logic, no more enemies, no more captor and captive. Only 2 beings who could not, by any rational law of nature, belong together, yet had melted into one, suspended in a single immortal moment neither dared to name. At last, the energy storm subsided. Syra lay motionless in Dren's arms, her bioluminescent patterns slowly returning to their natural state. The fever had broken. The fierce warrior woman had become something fragile, curling herself against the man she had once sworn to hate. Dren bowed his head, resting his forehead lightly against her tangled hair. His breathing slowed as his heart struggled to calm itself after the storm they had weathered together. In that moment, he knew the bond was no longer false. A soft alien breeze drifted through the crevices of the biodome, scattering silver-violet motes like gossamer strands adrift across an endless galactic sea. The night on Elsynar was far from over. Yet within the confines of the pairing sanctuary, 2 strangers had defied every law, shattered every expectation, and accidentally awakened the one thing that could not be reversed. A love born of ruin and destiny. A piercing alarm tore through the violet-tinged night sky of Elsynar. Harsh red warning lights strobed along the twisting biocorridors. The ground shook violently beneath them, as if some colossal subterranean beast was shifting in its sleep. Dren snapped awake instantly, battle-hardened instincts kicking into full control. Syra was already up, faint traces of bioluminescent energy still flickering along her skin from their earlier connection. They locked eyes without a word. Their bond, fragile as it was, needed no explanation. They both knew exactly what was coming. "Bio-Reapers," Syra whispered, her voice edged with both dread and the unshakable resolve of a warrior. "They're here. The sanctuary is under attack." The Bio-Reapers, horrific, self-replicating abominations designed to hunt and consume the life energy of any biological being they encountered. No creature captured by them had ever survived. The air grew heavy as lead. A deafening explosion rocked the quarters. Syra instantly activated her living armor, the dark metallic plates flowing seamlessly around her like a second skin. Dren had only his jumpsuit and the iron will that had carried him through every battle before this one. "Follow me. There's a way out through the eastern growth sector." Dren nodded and stuck close behind her. They bolted into the maze-like corridors, the red emergency lights casting violent flashes as warning klaxons screamed through the darkness. Doors were being torn apart from the outside, the structural integrity of the living complex collapsing in slow, brutal motion. The final blast came without warning. The massive bio-wall ahead of them buckled and exploded outward. A bio-reaper burst through the wreckage. It stood nearly twice Dren's height, an unholy fusion of bone, sinew, metal, and crackling green energy. Its long, whip-like tendrils lashed violently, destroying everything in their path. Syra didn't hesitate. With the speed of a lightning strike, she charged. Her wrist blades extended with a sharp hiss and sliced into the Reaper's joint. It screamed in fury, a horrible shriek as it swung around to retaliate. Dren snatched up a jagged shard of metal and hurled himself into the fray at Syra's side. It wasn't the first time he had stared death in the face without weapons. Instinct, sheer strength, and an unspoken synchronicity with Syra allowed them to evade and counterattack with deadly precision. Strike after strike, dodge after dodge, until finally, the towering monstrosity collapsed in a heap of sparking, smoking wreckage. Breathing heavily, they didn't stop to admire their work. Together they raced deeper into the biostructure as the shrieks of other bio-reapers echoed menacingly behind them. Bursting into the open, they froze. A plasma storm had begun. Violent arcs of blue and violet lightning writhed and twisted across the sky like serpents made of pure energy, tearing jagged lines through the cracked surface of Elsynari. Dren shielded his eyes from the searing heat radiating from the ground itself. "We'll never survive out there." "Yes, we will." Syra pointed toward a distant ridge of silver-violet mountains. "There's a natural cavern. I trained there once. If we can reach it, I can activate a bioshield to block the plasma." With no alternative, they plunged into the deadly mist. Each stride felt like running naked through a storm of molten needles. Dren cursed under his breath as Syra began to falter, slowed by the brutal tear in her armor from the earlier fight. "Don't, I'm fine," Syra gasped, trying to push him away. "Be quiet. You're my mate, remember?" Without hesitation, Dren scooped her effortlessly onto his back and continued forward, muscles burning under the intense strain. Her body was scorching hot yet surprisingly light, soft and fragile despite the unbreakable facade she had always maintained. They stumbled through wave after wave of plasma fury, violet bolts flashing so close they could feel the oxygen sear from the air. At last, the entrance to the cavern appeared ahead, like the promise of salvation. Inside, the energy was muted. Crystalline growths glowed softly along the walls, their light gentle and calming after the hell outside. Dren laid Syra down gently on a smooth stone slab. Her breathing was shallow, and her normally luminous skin had paled dangerously. Dren knelt beside her, pressing his hand softly against her cheek, desperate to feel the faint spark of life still within. "No, you can't die on me, Syra." Her golden eyes fluttered open, glassy and weak. Gone was the fierce predator, gone the cold sentinel. Now there was only a woman, stripped of armor and pride, terrified of losing the only person who had risked everything for her. "Dren?" He leaned down, his forehead resting lightly against hers as he closed his eyes. "I'm here." Outside, the plasma storm still raged like the wrath of an angry god. But inside the cavern, in that fragile sanctuary of flickering crystal light, two beings from worlds that should have annihilated each other held on as if their lives had never belonged anywhere else. Inside the dark heart of the cavern, faint green-blue light from plasma crystals bled softly across the jagged walls, resembling the fossilized remnants of a forgotten galaxy. That pale illumination settled over two figures resting against each other, like two mismatched puzzle pieces that somehow belonged. Dren sat motionless, back against the cold stone, his body taut and sore from hours of relentless escape. Syra nestled lightly against his chest, her fevered alien skin cooling at last, breathing slowing into a peaceful yet unfamiliar rhythm. Outside, the furious screams of the plasma storm had subsided into distant echoes, the agonized roar of a dying beast. Dren squeezed her gently, feeling the faint, steady pulse returning under her smooth, living satin skin. "You okay?" he whispered, warm breath brushing against her temple. Syra gave the faintest nod. The cold edge in her golden gaze had softened into something gentler, something Dren had never seen before. "Because of you? I'm alive." Dren smiled faintly, lowered his head, and pressed his lips softly against her warm forehead, the closest he had come to silently declaring that he had already accepted her as his, no matter how alien she might be. The serenity didn't last. A sharp vibration pierced Dren's senses, the telltale frequency only someone trained to survive in hostile environments would detect. Instantly, his muscles tensed like coiled springs. Something, or someone is coming. Syra sprang up, her predatory reflexes igniting like blades unsheathed for battle. Despite her weakened state, the iron will of an Elsynari warrior surged back into her. They moved quickly to the cave's mouth. Outside, the bitter wind lashed at them with icy talons, carrying glittering plasma dust that drifted like liquid diamonds through the silver-purple twilight. Below lay a sight that made Dren clench his fists so tightly, the knuckles turned white. The pairing sanctuary was in ruins. Green smoke spiraled skyward from the wreckage, like tortured spirits seeking escape from their prison. Dozens of Elsynari were suspended mid-air inside glowing green energy pods, the horrific work of the bio-reapers draining them as living energy sources. Syra's claws bit into her palms, her golden eyes burning with fury brighter than any star in that alien night. "They're using them as living fuel. If we don't act, they'll all die." Dren turned toward her, his voice like tempered steel. "Then we don't have a choice." No further words were needed. Syra activated her suit's auxiliary bioshield and touched Dren lightly, spreading a thin protective layer over him so he could better withstand the energy pulses emitted by the Reapers. They charged down the slope through the violet mist, two silver arrows streaking toward the doomed valley. They moved as if they had been born to fight side by side. The battle erupted the moment they hit the ground. The bio-reapers swarmed from all directions. Towering monstrosities, nightmarish combinations of muscle, biocircuitry, and gleaming metal, their tentacles whipped through the air like razor-sharp whips of death. They had no eyes, no faces, only a pulsing green core embedded in their torsos, the source of their unnatural existence. Syra moved first, a streak of silver lightning carving through their formation. Her wrist blades extended and traced deadly arcs of precision, severing joints and collapsing their biomechanical exoskeletons. Dren fought differently. No weapons, no armor. Every scrap of debris, a fractured biopillar, a shattered support strut, a broken shard of metal, became a deadly extension of his raw, primal human defiance. He dodged, rolled, struck with brute force, ripped out tangled cables and hydraulic lines with bare hands forged by years of survival against impossible odds. In that chaos, they were perfection. Every time Syra was cornered, Dren appeared, shielding her with his body against lethal strikes. They fought like two halves of a whole neither species had ever imagined possible. Together, they freed one Elsynari after another. Warriors, civilians, even younglings captured as living fuel, were pulled from the clutches of those cursed green pods. The sight of a Terran test subject and an elite Elsynari warrior battling side by side shattered the will of the surviving prisoners. The remaining Elsynari stared wide-eyed at the impossible sight. The former enemies now united as the symbol of rebellion and the last flicker of hope in the heart of death itself. "We can retreat through the northern ridge," Syra shouted, her voice vibrant and alive in a way Dren had never heard before. The ground trembled with an unearthly growl. A colossal reaper emerged, over 3 meters tall, armored in reflective silver plates like living steel. Its dense tentacles whipped through the air, cutting like death cyclones. "Go! I'll hold it off!" Dren shouted, instinctively stepping between Syra and the civilians. "No!" Syra roared back, golden eyes ablaze with equal parts rage and desperation. She hurled herself in front of him. "You're my mate. If we die together." There was no time to argue. They charged the behemoth together, two souls bound by fate defying the impossible. Syra ducked beneath the slashing tendrils, her wrist blades piercing deep into the armored neck seam and severing its critical nerve conduits. Dren wasn't far behind. One massive tentacle wrapped around his throat and tightened with bone-crushing force. With a guttural roar, he summoned every ounce of raw human strength and fury, snapping the appendage in a surge of primal defiance. The creature shrieked and writhed before collapsing in a heap, its core liquefying into a steaming pool of sickly green against the charred purple soil. They stood frozen, breathing hard, eyes locked, no longer captor and captive, no longer alien and human. Only Syra and Dren, two beings from opposite stars who had found something more powerful than biology, loyalty, or duty. Syra raised a trembling hand and traced her fingers gently over Dren's battered face. Soft, healing light radiated from her palm, knitting the torn flesh. "You fought for me, for my people, even when no one asked you to." Dren clasped her hand and pressed it against his cheek. "Because you're my mate, because I love you." For the first time, Syra didn't retreat. A real, warm smile, the first he had ever seen, bloomed on her battle-hardened face. They clasped hands tightly amidst the wreckage of the battlefield. As the silver-violet dawn of Elsynari crept over the distant mountains, casting the first light upon their blood, sweat, and a love now proven in ways no bond could ever hope to break. The dawn on Elsynari had never looked so beautiful. From the still, shadowed horizon, fine silver rays wove their way between mist-shrouded mountain peaks, casting an otherworldly shimmer across the jade-toned valley. Towering plasma spires stood sentinel like forgotten gods of some ancient age, their smooth surfaces scattering soft light into millions of diamond-like shards, as though the heavens themselves had been dusted with celestial gems. Cold winds whispered through the narrow canyons, carrying the strange herbal scents of native flora and plasma dust that drifted like silent, luminous creatures across the alien sky. Dren and Syra stood side by side on the highest cliff of the Terran range, where ancient Elsynari warriors once underwent their rites of passage. Behind them gathered the surviving Elsynari, newly freed from the jaws of death. Their faces were still torn between wonder and reverence, as they gazed at the two beings they had once considered strangers, now transformed into their unlikely saviors. Dren squeezed Syra's hand, feeling the softness of her skin beneath the dissipating nanoscopic remnants of her bioarmor, which had begun breaking apart and drifting into the breeze. Words failed him. They had fought. They had lost. They had sacrificed. And somehow they had reclaimed their freedom on a world that was never meant to be his. The rescue signal he had activated had been picked up by the Terran Alliance. A recovery ship was already descending from Elsynari's orbit and would land within hours. What should have been a simple decision was now the most difficult choice of his life. Syra stood silent, her eyes fixed on the infinite violet horizon, where plasma crystals floated like luminous rivers of light. The mating bond on her wrist still glowed faintly, a soft yet undeniable reminder that her heart was torn between duty and desire. "You must go," Syra finally said, her voice low and warm, laced with a sorrow she tried to conceal. "You have a home. You have your people. Elsynari is not meant for a human." Dren said nothing. He stepped forward, gently lifting her hand and enclosing it within his own. Though alien, her touch was warm, alive and deeply human in its tenderness. No. His voice burned with quiet resolve. I lost everything in that battle, my crew, my ship, my command, but I found you, and I will not abandon the only thing I have left that truly matters. Syra's eyes widened, disbelief flooding her expression. An Elsynari warrior who had lived her entire life believing no one outside her species could understand her, let alone love her, was now facing the one man willing to defy every boundary for her. Dren leaned in, brushing his lips softly against her cool ones. It wasn't a kiss of passion, but of solemn commitment, a silent vow that they would never again be torn apart by species, law, or the cruel hand of fate. I am not your pretend mate anymore, Syra. Dren whispered against her breath. I am yours. If there is a real mating ritual, I want to do it now. Not as two beings forced together, but as a man and a woman who have chosen each other. Syra's golden eyes flared softly. Her biocircuit markings shifted to a gentle violet hue, the ancient Elsynari biological signal of consent and emotional acceptance. Slowly, reverently, she nodded. Together, they stepped back into the ancient circle of standing stones, the once sacred ground of Elsynari pair bonding rites. There were no witnesses, no laws, no judges, only Syra and Dren. Syra shed her final layer of bio-armor. Living metallic scales flowed from her body like quicksilver cascading backward into the air. Dren reached out, brushing his fingers softly down the line of her back, feeling her heartbeat strong yet fragile under the satin-smooth silver of her skin. The ritual began with the simplest act. They each placed a hand over the other's heart. Dren felt her life energy pass through him like a warm current, merging with his very cells as though they had once been a single soul at the birth of stars. But they didn't stop there. Every kiss, every touch, every gasp was an affirmation, a mutual declaration that they had chosen each other of their own free will. Syra's soft, burning warmth blended perfectly with Dren's raw strength and endurance. They did not just merge bodies. They merged wills, spirits, and an unwavering defiance to live and love without boundaries. There was no longer a false bond. This was the true and sacred union between two species from opposite worlds who had defied every law, every danger, every prejudice simply to find each other. When it ended, they lay motionless beneath Elsynar's pale dawn. The floating plasma crystals hovered and shimmered above them like a cosmic constellation of fireflies, vibrating softly as if blessing the completion of an ancient rite lost to both civilizations. Syra rested her hand on Dren's chest, feeling his strong, steady heartbeat beneath her palm. She gazed deeply into his eyes, for the first time in her life, with no hesitation, no fear. We did what no one believed was possible. Dren tightened his arms around her slender waist and whispered warmly into her ear. We turned the lie into truth. In the distance, the faint rumble of the rescue ship's engines drifted down from orbit, the fading call of a world Dren had chosen to leave behind. He did not turn back. He knew exactly where he belonged. They stood side by side atop the stone cliff, their hands intertwined, staring out toward the endless violet horizon of Elsynar, ready to face whatever this world would bring them. No longer strangers, no longer prisoner and captor. Just two souls, together as one,